holding a top against the door to try to keep the water out.
This Brentwood woman's home is gutted by floodwaters. She says she's never seen until a massive housing development was built right next door. Good evening, everyone. I'm Tracy Cornett.
And I'm Marius Payton. Tonight, News 4 investigates found similar complaints coming from West Nashville to South Nashville to Brentwood.
It's why Call for Action problem solver Caresse Jackman is asking the city's water department tonight, is too much development being approved, putting existing homes at risk?
What usually stays in its creek bed left behind this kind of destruction when it washed into Monette Young's Brentwood home on March 27th.
The garage was flooded. I mean, my freezers were upside down. Things were floating. In about 30 minutes, I was holding a top against the door to try to keep the water out, and it pushed me back, and it just flowed into the house.
Despite the estimated more than $100,000 worth of damage, this house isn't in a floodplain. For the 6 years they've lived here, they never thought they needed it.
We have never had any issue. We've watched the water rise, but it always runs smoothly out and across to the other side of the street.
Here's the only thing that's changed in the 6 years they've lived here: clearing of land for future homes.
They cleared all of the trees. There was no additional modifications made for stormwater. And I'm positive that that's what caused my house to flood.
There's no accountability at all.
A familiar story for Greg Estes in South Nashville.
There's so much water that the water just flows over from this ditch over into the street.
Right off Antioch Pike on Reeves Road, Estes says this development led to flooding problems in his neighborhood.
It wouldn't be like this in Green Hills or Sylvan Park or Westmead. We want it done properly. We don't want a Band-Aid. After 2 years, we want it fixed.
But News 4 Investigates did find the same kind of flooding in Green Hills, with neighbors saying too much development was allowed before water retention regulations were in place.
Have you seen a lot of calls from people saying, I'm worried that these new developments are impacting my house?
We have seen calls, and again, it's so often because people don't like change in their neighborhood.
But Metro Water believes the flooding problems are less about developers and more about Mother Nature.
Even in the summertime, if we receive 7 inches of rain, we're going to have flooding. The streams can't handle it, our creeks can't handle it, and our built stormwater infrastructure is often inundated with that type of rain event.
Allman says they have inspectors constantly making sure developers are following Metro Water's regulations. Allman also says developers who buy lots have to follow strict guidelines and can't impact surrounding properties.
I'm not saying that there aren't cases where we've gone out and had to stop a developer from doing something because they weren't following their plan and they were making an impact. And, and we do monitor that.
Homeowners that we've spoken with, they blame this development for the flooding happening over there. I mean, what would you say to them?
Well, this is all red, chirpy dirt. What was over there was gray gravel.
Les Capajama is one of the developers whose developments are blamed for causing flooding. He says the water running into the streets not coming from this development. Instead, Capajama points to this tree toppling over for clogging the gutter and flooding the road.
What would you say to those who are very apprehensive about not just you, but developers coming into their neighborhoods, what they feel is making the city places flood that they've never flooded before?
Only thing that I know is the guy that bought this property, he's already put it under contract with me. He's a real good builder. He does everything by the book.
But the families say there must be a common theme, as they are all in different neighborhoods with the same problem.
Because Nashville is growing, and it's a beautiful and wonderful thing. But to think about, like, what's going to happen to the other people, to the other homes, is everyone else secure? And those are things to think about. And you don't know what's going to happen.
Now, the Brentwood developer wouldn't agree to go on camera, but says he followed the proper rules and guidelines set by Metro Water, and you could read his full statement online. As for that area along Reeves Road and Goodwin in South Nashville, Metro Water says they refined the ditch after the flooding last month, and they replaced failing driveway pipes last year.
So, Caresse, let's break this down. Metro Water says they're not to blame, nor the developer.
Yeah, so where does the buck stop here?
Yeah, so we went to the mayor's office, right? Because we wanted to ask him for himself. After all, it's his department, codes, and Metro Water that approved these developments. So they gave us this statement tonight for now, saying, quote, Mayor Cooper's team works closely with Metro Water Services on this issue. All new development in Davidson County must meet stormwater regulations, and new construction is not allowed to increase upstream or flow downstream. Now, the city recognizes the importance of this issue and has dedicated an entire division at Metro Water Services to proactively addressing it. In addition, Mayor Cooper, in his latest capital spending plan, allocated $20 million to mitigate neighborhood stormwater flooding. So we also asked for an interview with the mayor on this topic because obviously it means a lot to all of these homeowners we interviewed. We will let you know when we talk with him. Marius, Tracy?